Episode number 11.
That is the power of taking the relationship building beyond just face-to-face, beyond phone, and really doing it at scale.
Welcome to the Be Real Show with Travis Too Tall and Huff, where we talk about solutions, tips, and tricks for social marketers and businesses.
Welcome to the Be Real Show with Travis Too Tall and Huff, and I am pumped up today to have our featured guest, Ekaterina Walter. Welcome, Ekaterina.
Hi, Travis. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Are you ready to be real?
Absolutely. I'm all about being real.
Yes. Ekaterina is a sprinkler evangelist, also an international speaker, and the author of the best-selling book, Think Like Zuck. And as a side note, I just checked right now, Ekaterina has 165,000 Twitter followers. Ekaterina, we have given our listeners just a little insights into you, but maybe you can tell us some more and expand on what's going on.
Oh gosh, where to start? Well, I guess I'm a marketer at heart. I've been in an industry in tech industry, but basically doing marketing for a while now. But mainly in the past, I want to say 10-ish years, the focus was very heavily on digital and social. So I really had a pleasure and privilege of building something fantastic and really cool at brands like Intel, where we've created social sort of business mentality for the company globally from pretty much from scratch when social media was just a term and there was no content or any best known practices around it. So sort of building that blueprint for a global company with a variety of communities across different social networks and websites, etc. It was a lot of fun. I guess I went into a startup world where I co-founded a business that was then subsequently sold to Sprinkler, where I now serve as global evangelist and help build communities and just do all kinds of fun things and projects and working with our customers and an industry to advance the how social, or how you would say digital overall should be done, and where the next 5-10 years take us, and what does that mean from people, processes, and platform and technology perspective. Wrote 2 books, have a blog, active on social networks, so if somebody has questions and want to reach out, they can find me pretty much everywhere. And that's a quick snapshot about me, at least the professional part.
I love it, and you are a busy lady. The biggest thing, real timers, you're listening right now is Ekaterina has been doing this for how long in digital and social? Oh
gosh, it's got to be 10, 15-ish years, but I think the social part and the rise of digital really happened more of the last 10 on a really sort of more mainstream scale.
Absolutely. We've been in business for 6, and I would even say the last 5 years have just been a tremendous increase in brands taking the power of social networking serious. And I still believe that, to be honest with you, most of them are underfunded. Their departments have not enough staff to do the correct amount of really social engagement that's required. And I think there's going to be even more and more development and need for, thought leaders like yourself to write another book and give us some great advice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. But, I want to say that you're right. The use has been explosive, but the way brands catching up to not just the use, but also the expectations and sort of the changing landscape of what consumers believe the relationship with brands should really look like, and the response of brands and just communication with brands should look like. I think a lot of brands are still catching up, and that is a big problem, because in business, doesn't matter what you do, and doesn't matter whether you're a marketer or business owner, if you're lagging behind the expectations of your market, or your new and a lot of potential customers who are now millennials and have a totally different outlook on not only who they are but what they need, and how what they need needs to be delivered, right? It's a big issue, and just brands, because especially the large or enterprise brands, because they're so slow to pivot, they are struggling. But you're right. I think it's an issue across the board.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just much more than just posting content out on the networks. And obviously, it's a lot easier for smaller brands, but as you said, like you mentioned, as you get to be a bigger brand, the staffs that we've seen and just the engagement and stuff on certain brands is awesome. And then other brands, you're like, what's going on there? It's just, and maybe they're like the lag, like you mentioned, is maybe going to take another 5 years for them to seriously take it more serious as far as listening and engagement, with more about the community and less about, I'm going to just post all day.
Yes, it's, the activity is definitely rising and overwhelming. I call it the age of infobicity. We live in the age of infobicity, but the hardest part is to filter through it and understand what's relevant, how to route different communications and conversations or requests, right? How to support on different levels by topic, and for that it's really tough, right? Because you have to have an infrastructure to help you do that, and if you cannot do it on time in a relevant way and address it within the time frames that customers expect you to address it, it becomes a problem, right? Because you don't just have a website, you have 20, 30 plus different other channels, and the sales funnel is flipped, and it's not a funnel anymore, it's a zigzag, and people actually can enter into conversations with you from all kinds of touch points and perspectives and conversations, and it's really tough to sort of rein it all in. And say, look, I'm a brand who knows what's going on, who's listening, and who truly participates in that two-way conversation. It is tough, especially if you have millions of mentions happening every day. So,
Right.
How do you do that? And not only how do you do that from a technology perspective and putting together infrastructure that lets you do that, but how do you break down internal silos to make sure it's effective across the board, and your teams like marketing and customer service and HR and IR, PR, all others are working together to really address the customer concern. Because customer doesn't care that you have your internal problems and you have silos and there's processes needs to be worked out and the right people needs to be hired who have the right knowledge. All they care about is what is the response they're getting, how fast they're getting it, and what is the support you provide them as a customer. And if you don't provide that, they switch.
Yep.
And nowadays it's so easy because there's so many solutions. I mean, heck, in the US alone, Travis, where I think there's like 30,000+ new products that are being launched in the United States alone every year. So imagine how much competition you have. Why wouldn't they switch if you're not ready to be there and address their pain points, their questions, their concerns, or just plain participate in the conversation? And right, that all takes a lot of resources, not just time and people and money, but just combination of all of those.
Absolutely. There's so many different factors to it that I think brands have just started scratching the surface of where they're going to allocate more and more of their resources. And I think social is the one that is just still lacking. And all the things you mentioned there, it's way beyond advertising and marketing. It's PR, it's HR, it's all these different levels of the business. And so to not have them involved, really doesn't bring out an authentic approach. So now we're going to take us into a real moment. This is a time where you feel or tell us a story about maybe a time that maybe you failed in social media.
Oh, golly. There's probably multiple stories out there because who doesn't fail? And interestingly, especially if you were here at the very beginning of the whole rise of social, that all of us have failed multiple times because there was literally no blueprint. There was no, like I said, no best known practices. And I remember I remember I would call up different brands or my friends in different brands who's been at the forefront of social. So like, Dell and Cisco and Coke and a number of others. And I would say, okay, well, so what you up to? What are you doing? Here's my plan. And here's what I'm trying to figure out. And we would share the stories of failure because there was nothing else there, right? There was very, very few pieces of content, and we were all sort of the pioneers trying to feel our way through it. Well, I mean, there's a number of cases. I remember one instance where I was building, and at the very beginning, once to sort of set at Intel, we set the processes and the guidelines, and we started sort of working with multiple different business units and geographies to try to figure out how best not just to listen but build our communities. I was managing strategy for social communities, including Facebook. And at that point, because everybody is resource constrained, especially in the beginning, until you prove the true ROI, I was also managing our Facebook page. And I remember we got attacked by one of the groups on our page around one of the legislatures that was going on. And it was an interesting experience where we tried to approach things in a variety of ways, but after the same message was posted, literally the same message, copy and paste over and over by different people, same people. And our community started complaining, saying, Intel, this is a forum for tech discussions. And our community was organically grown then. And they were very passionate and they were very engaged. And they discussed all kinds of aspects of technology. We had really meaningful conversations. And they started complaining. So one of the things, I tried out is I made it very clear that this isn't the right forum, that our team isn't aware of all the details of the case. And we have a blog post where we discuss all the details and what we can and can't talk about, and also addressed all the comments. And I suggested that they go there. And because I was cognizant of preserving sort of the balance within our community and the health of our community, I did openly say, I'm going to turn off the ability for people to post on our page, and invited them to go have discussion elsewhere where we had a team who actually is very well aware of the case, could respond to all the questions and inquiries and concerns. And these people didn't like it. And we did get, a couple of local PR places picking it up and saying, "Oh, Intel doesn't want a conversation," and they turned off the ability of people to comment. And in our community, and I apologized. I said, "Okay, great, I'll turn it back on," but instead of meaningful conversations, we're not having conversations. So I apologized. We learned from that. But what started happening, our community started to take over and started literally on purpose having a ton of conversation about technology to drown out the noise of everybody else, because they were really upset. Right. They basically said, You guys don't want to have a meaningful discussion. You just want to post the same message over and over and disrupt everybody else in the community. And so, those things you kind of learn from. It's not that it wasn't the right move, and maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I still stand by but by that wasn't the right approach. But however, the perception you're giving, right, or the way certain moves can be translated or understood, you have to think for all of that. And as a marketer, unfortunately, especially for a global brand, right, you got to be aware of all different angles that could happen. So, and this is not the only, time I probably fell on my face, but the reality is people want to know that you're human. And if you did something wrong, you apologize, you be very real about it. And you say, and you take the feedback and comments graciously, right, gracefully, not screaming and yelling. And they just want to know that you are human. And that the brand isn't just a big cold logo, that there's people behind it, and that they're willing to, there's gonna be mistakes, and they're just willing to have a conversation.
That is so real, to be honest with you, because like you said, at the end of the day, if you made an error, you just need to, confront that as like a human would confront an error. And it creates, it deflates the balloon, if you want to call it, in a lot of cases where that's all people were looking for anyways, and what you did there, I think was, everybody is going to fail. If you do anything in life and you keep progressing your life, you're going to fail. Well, social, you have to do that every day.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and you're just doing it all day long, and you're doing it with every tweet could be a failure, or with every little retweet, or with anything could be, and you don't know how it's going to react. But if there was an issue, you just, you confront it, and the community in most cases is there to support you. So like you mentioned, when they drowned it out, eventually over time, because they're there back again to talk about technology and why they love Intel, and then I'm sure from your guys' perspective, the things change as far as how you would respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. We learn and we move on. I mean, we played, the fun part about working at the very beginning of that at Intel and really leading the charge was that our management allowed us this flexibility to play, to take risks. And, content is one area where you do that all the time, because, you might want to take a risk and something might pay off, something might not pay off. And some people go, come on. And some will go, right, this is awesome, I'm going to share the heck out of it. Right. So we've had, literally every day, Travis, right? And when you work in this environment and you work with people, especially communities, are you going to have what you feel like is a small mistake or a big mistake happen to you all the time, even if you're a seasoned community? That's why community management is so important, where people say, well, we'll hire an intern. No, you got to hire somebody who, first of all, knows your brand. Second of all, knows and appreciates your community and are able to balance the needs of the community with the needs of the brand. It's really, really hard. It's really hard. And communities are live organisms, right? And people, they are all different. And so being able to take risks and play with different pieces of content and address the conversations, that all takes savviness, and that also takes compassion and humanity and human and authentic element, right? So that's your reality. Is when you're now in this space, it's all about trial and error consistently. New networks are popping up, new features, ways of talking to people. It's all changing so fast. So no matter whether you've been there at the beginning or you think you're savvy now, you're still doing A/B testing. You still go by trial and error.
It's all trial and error. Like you said, that's one of the coolest parts about being in social, is because all of a sudden one day you might log into the social networks and things are changed, and there's a new feature that you can take advantage of for your brand, for yourself as a person, as a personal brand. And also there might be a whole new app or company or something else to empower you too. It's really the horizon is so high as far as, we're just here now. And we've mentioned through this podcast so many different areas that businesses need to address more, with their social. Take it, HR. One of the interesting areas that I've seen with HR is the amount of people wanting to share posts about job postings. And being that kind of, the community wants to share and spread the word and help people get jobs. And I think there's just such a lack of an approach to that. But like we've mentioned, there's almost limitless things to do with content. And so you're going to have to take those risks and not be afraid to fail.
Well, I think there's a lot of, they're not new areas, but they're sort of new just because brands just tapping into it. One of this you mentioned is social recruiting. Right? Social recruiting is insane. I mean, there's businesses. A friend of mine, Vala Afshar, CMO of Nextworks. That's all how he hires. He hires on Twitter, period. And you can find multiple articles about, because I think Wall Street Journal, a couple others covered his hiring process. But he's like, I don't need your resume. I'm hiring through Twitter, and you tell me why you need to be hired. And people practicing and playing with new ways of finding critical talent. And so social recruiting is a huge area that brands haven't even started to tap in. Smaller businesses, medium businesses, some really socially savvy executives have, but brands as a whole haven't been doing ton of that, which they probably should. And, at Sprinkler, we do a bunch of that. And it works very well for us, but we don't just, share job postings. We say, look, here's the culture. Here's what our employees saying about us. Here's the recent projects we just covered. There's a number of articles that we've written just on fun ways of how I had one I covered on the game of Assassin that we've done at Sprinkler. It's one of my posts on Inc. On how to literally kill the culture of boredom, right? Like, you need to open up your kimono and share who you are, and it's not just for social recruiting; it's with your customers as well. It's if you tightly hold on to control, nothing's going to work. Period. And then the other areas are social selling, right? So how are we tapping into conversations we're currently having and people that are just asking basic questions or tapping in the conversations where you can find your potential new customers. Maybe they don't know about you. How do you really tap into that? And it's such an untapped world still. And some people think that they do social selling well, but it's very much still in its infancy if it's done right. So all those new areas, right? Social recruiting, social selling, etc. It's on the rise. And the question is, how do brands do that well at scale? And at scale is what scares most people, right? It's not easy.
It's not going to be easy.
Right.
No, there's no way it's going to be easy. It's not going to necessarily be an app that's just going to do it for you, but an app might empower a social selling team. In fact, I have a story 2 days ago. A really close friend of mine says, social media works. And she calls up and she's fired up on me and she says, social media works. And she says, 2 days ago, I just closed my first $1 million account via LinkedIn on the Messenger. And it was just, it gave me goosebumps because she's a friend of mine and she doesn't do social selling probably as an active management, but she's been doing it for a while and building it up. And it's just a proven method that this is just one little example I heard a couple days ago, but hey, everyone, $1 million account to any business is wonderful. And if you can maximize that through one of your sales team and using the power of LinkedIn, I mean, there's so much room for growth in that industry. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen as far as an HR and selling perspective because of how much dollars are focused on that for a traditional, in the traditional ways of business.
Absolutely agree with you.
So now take us to a real moment. Take us to that point where you feel like social media marketing completely changed your mindset.
Oh, it's I think it's the other way around. So. It isn't just that the rise of social changed my mindset. It's more of when you have the right mindset, which is I've always been a networker, an insane networker and a connector. I've always loved talking to people. I was always drawn to the communities of interest around specific passion points, right? If you have the mindset of building relationships, and I don't care whether it's building relationship with peers in the industry, with influencers in the industry, with your customers, with your partners, with investors, I really don't care who that is. But if you have that mindset that is relationship focused, what social just done, it just ignited. It was literally a match that ignited the fire that was already there, right? You cannot force it the other way around. You cannot go to the executives who really don't get that mindset and say, oh my God, look at the social, you gotta use it. And then social totally, changes their mindset. That just doesn't happen, right?
That's true.
Or it happens very rarely. What you need to have is that basic mindset first. So for me, social, that's what social did. It was pretty much a match that lit the fire that was already there. I mean, I was already connected with a lot of people on LinkedIn. I already had conversations with them over the phone and face to face. And suddenly social opened the world up to me where I could connect with people on Twitter from Australia and New Zealand and UK and India and there's so many new friends that I've made who are literally amazing connections and amazing acquaintances who are now in my support group, meaning we help each other, we support each other, we help each other grow professionally and personally, who I've met and known also through social for years before I met them face to face. I mean, that totally shifts the way we think about, relationships or growing your circle and your network, right? Beyond what you just have, and creating that support group around yourself, whatever that is, again, personal or professional. And I'm seeing friends coming to each other's aid consistently. Somebody posts on Facebook that they have really unexpected, horrible health issues that young people who nobody expected it in, and I see the support, like this network rallying around them, right? Somebody publishes a piece of content that's really impactful in the industry, and I see people rallying around it, and that is the power of taking the relationship building beyond just face to face, beyond phone, and really doing it at scale. Obviously, there's only so many people that will be in your, direct or secondary network. But the reality is, it's just the world is open to you. And for brands, that means insane ROI if they do it right.
Absolutely. And we're just scratching the surface. Like you mentioned, and we've talked about through the podcast here, is that, it's just, you have to be passionate about it before. Like you mentioned, you were a networker before. So this just gave you that boom, rocket ship to the moon, ready to go. Where in the other way, it would have been a lot harder to cultivate all those relationships from across the world and keep your network close and then support each other. I love what you said about supporting each other, because I feel like that's the same thing that I love about social, is that people are really there to support each other, the friends and the brands that they love. And I think brands really need to realize that more, that they're there to support you, not just to hear your message, but really to support you. And how can you get them to share your content more? I think that's something every brand is wanting more of, is how to get people to share more.
Yeah, but you can't get people to share more unless they have that trust and you have this rapport built with them. And brands do it backwards. Brands want all this free sharing without actually putting an effort into a relationship. And that is what upsetting to me about the fact that the mentality is backwards. Everybody's like, oh, real-time marketing, it's so sexy, it's so awesome. Well, real-time marketing is, first of all, it's nothing new. And second of all, it's actually a mentality. It's a way of thinking. It's not just a tactic you can use and boom, suddenly something goes viral. And so that's, I think there needs to be a deeper understanding for sure.
Absolutely. So now we are going to enter your mindset, Ekaterina, with some B-realisms. Tell us, in a perfect world, where do you dream of living?
You know what? I will tell you that there's probably two answers to this question, which is
Cool.
a really interesting question. So one is everywhere.
Nice.
I'm a global citizen. I've always been global. My whole career, my whole life, even though I grew up in Russia, which is strange, right? Because it's back then when I was growing up, it was still USSR. So it was a very closed country environment and sort of the mindset. But I've always been really global. And so when I say everywhere, I'm really, truly a global citizen. My whole professional career, I worked with people from all over a variety of countries. I still do. I have friends in multiple different countries and cities. I love to travel. And social now, literally, when your bio on your anywhere on any social network asks where are you from or where are you located, I really have this urge to say everywhere.
Nice.
My MBA is from a global school. Thunderbird is a fantastic school, and that is a school literally for global citizens where there's just a mishmash of different cultures and thought leaderships and processes. It's just like it's amazing. And so my first, urge is to say everywhere. But I will say that if we talk about physical reality, I live where I want to live. I live in the amazing state of Oregon in Portland. And it is a great place, not just to live. Community is fantastic and diverse. It's also a great place to raise kids. And that's the reason why I haven't been saying yes, and then go and work in different brands because, they want you to move, San Francisco, New York, Austin, other places. And I truly believe in the virtual mindset as well as virtual working environment, just because when you have a job like I do, which takes you traveling everywhere, and you can still connect with people either face to face or virtually, or both, and get your work done and really create amazing stuff. It really doesn't matter where you live.
Absolutely. And I am in the same model as you are. I aspire to live everywhere because I enjoy traveling myself, and our business allows me to do the same thing, in that we can travel and work virtually and still keep that same workflow productivity. So now take us to how you typically like to start your day.
Well, first of all, my day always starts with my child, so
Nice.
that is when I don't travel. Because if I don't travel, my day starts with a mobile phone and hey, what needs to be done today? Unfortunately, yeah. But that's, I love what I do. But my day is basically making sure my child is happy and off to school, and I work. I love what I do, and whether there's extracurricular activities or hobbies that are connected again to what I do, like writing books or articles or working on some fun projects. It's always amazing to me because I work with great people. My job is utilizing my skill sets and capabilities to 100%. I learn new things every day. So the way I start my day is basically, quick breakfast, making sure my child, my family is happy, and then focusing on what I love doing.
I love it. I was going to ask you, when do you like to start with writing?
It's probably better. It's probably better for me in the middle day. I'm not a morning person, and I like to catch up and make sure that there's no urgent issues that needs to be addressed in the morning. So middle of the day towards early afternoon is great. Sometimes I have inspiration head and late, like right before I go to bed, later in the evening. So it really depends. But if I do work on bigger project like a book, which most of the time is probably weekends, then I like to just basically just focus on that thing. So you wake up in the morning, you get to doing it, no distractions, and you do it for 6, 8, 10, sometimes 14 hours,
Wow.
in the row, to make sure, because you have all that fresh in your mind, and you have to really truly focus on it. So that it just depends on what I'm working on.
So for that long form content, like a book, you really have to do it in almost like one day, like you mentioned, and get it all out there, and then maybe revise it more. Because I've found writing shorter pieces of content is a little easier for me, but when I'm working on this book concept I have, I'm stuck at chapter 3 and I haven't progressed it because I probably didn't do what you are doing and writing it all at once and just getting it all out there at once.
Yeah, and you don't, not necessarily, do it in just one day. But what I'm saying is, so for example, this Christmas is usually quite a time for business, because a lot of people are out, your clients are out, and you usually have much quieter environment. So I spend all the holidays doing writing for the book that I'm currently working on. But that's, it's in the weekends, if you have, if your family can, watch your child, your kids, et cetera, and you can just go away and focus somewhere where you can map it out and just write, right? Because when you write, there's just so much stuff in your head, and you have to bring it all together. It has to make sense. And if you just do a chopped 1 hour here, 1 hour there, you'll never be able to fluidly focus on the specific process. So yeah, it's different, definitely.
That hits me in the heart, because that's what I need to focus on for my future writing for long form content is taking your words of wisdom here to heart. So now take us to some of the best advice you feel like you've ever received.
Oh gosh, you got to narrow that down, because advice could be pretty much about anything. Are you talking about professional life?
It could be anything you want. It could be anything that you want. And to be honest with you, we don't have any preference.
Oh my! Well, I think the best advice I've ever received is be yourself. There's so much, God, I have to tell you, there's so much pressure when we grow up, right? And we go to school, and especially in high school, there's just so much pressure of being like somebody else, or, you're not as pretty, you're not as smart, or you're too much of a nerd, which is, by the way, the new sexy thing. So it's not a bad thing, right?
Not at all.
And I think, and I always tell people that when my daughter grows up, if I only give her one thing, is that confidence that no matter what she takes on, she can do it herself. Working off of that, there's another piece of advice that I give people is I say, look, self-learning is the best skill you can ever have. Because I've seen, for my first book, I interviewed people like Jake Nickel, who created Threadless, and it's an amazing community of artists, and a business model that is highly profitable and still blows minds of Harvard business professors, right? Because they never thought something like that could be possible as a business model. So check it out if you don't know about it. Or, Ricky Van Veen, who created collegehumor.com and other media properties that again, also highly profitable and successful. All these guys did it in their early 20s without zero knowledge of business, right? Jake says, I had to go Google, how to run business cards and how to run credit cards and figure out how to, do the purchase orders and others. And I had to learn it all myself. It's the biggest skill you can give her, besides having confidence is in, your own path and knowing who you are and where you want to go is the skill of self-learning. If you can self-learn anything during your life, you're set, right? You don't necessarily need to have fancy degrees, which are kind of preferred, but so many people prove that without that and just with that skill, those street smarts, they can build anything they want. So
be yourself and always self-learn.
Correct.
I think that so true. I mean, Google is our friend. And also I think all the social networks as well have a lot of ability to add more search functionality in them over time to really give you a social search that, will answer any question you have, anything you want to learn. And like you mentioned about your friend that started, with the college humor, I mean, they're building huge businesses. And if you want to learn how to build a business card, if you want to learn how to run a credit card, anything you need, it's out there as far as advice and a YouTube video or someone there to help you or an awesome piece of content or a blog to help you. And that's the biggest tool that I think I've used too in my short-term career here of starting real time in that anything I've ever wanted to learn about social networking and someone's doing a dark post, when I remember those were hot, it was like, I don't know what a dark post was. I didn't know what it was, to be honest with you. So I just Googled it and boom, all of a sudden I know what a dark post is. I see how to run an ad and all of a sudden I can run dark posts now. So now take us to the hot seat where you can share some phenomenal resources and some real talk answers. Ekaterina, be real. If you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be?
Buddha.
Nice. Nice.
I don't know.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're being real. You're being real. It's the hot seat.
Dalai Lama, if you want to go.
Oh yeah, the Dalai Lama.
With the living one, but that's seriously. That's just that's. I think that's on my bucket list. And
so, do you meditate then?
A little. I'm not too much into it. There's a variety of reasons why, Buddhism is interesting to me or why I want to talk to Dalai Lama. But I do, let me put it this way, I do a little bit of everything in moderation. I think meditation is great, but I just like eating a little bit of everything and moderating yourself on exercise and nutrition and everything else. I do a little bit of everything. So a little bit, I'm not, extremely into it, which I heard it's really cool. So you should be, especially if you live stressful lives. But I think a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Have you heard of the app or the website called Headspace?
I haven't.
Yeah, Headspace is a really cool one if you ever want to check out. They work you up from a 10-minute meditation to a 20-minute max, which I don't think, like you mentioned, it's about everything. You have to still live a normal life. You can't be meditating for 5 hours a day. But 10 to 20 minutes seems to really give you that clarity of focus and just, in those stressful moments, especially. So do you have a favorite internet tool like a Buffer, Hootsuite that you like to use on a daily basis?
Oh, gosh. I have a number of favorite tools and apps. One that I use consistently just because I'm sort of a self-proclaimed amateur photographer, and I love to shoot my own sort of faux photography for either my presentations or anything else. Really, is an app called VSCO Cam. I mean, it's one that allows you to edit an image to almost a professional grade with colors popping and all other kinds of functionality. So I love that. I use that pretty often. I use Newsly.
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
It's, like I said, I'm a connector, and it kind of gives you an opportunity to see what all your sort of friends are up to and where they've been featured online, and be able to say, hey, congrats, or share a piece of content that might matter to them. God, I love LinkedIn again because I'm a connector, and it's also a media company now that shares a ton of content. I mean, I use a lot of different things and different tools. It just depends on what for, right?
Yeah, and the cool part now is it's just you never know. There might be a new one coming in, and they're building it right now that's going to be released in a couple weeks. And it's just so interesting how the movement on some of these new apps are, like Periscope and Meerkat, just instantly just kind of took on, and then all of a sudden, Periscope's taken over by Twitter, and there's just so many interesting developments happening. It's you really have to kind of keep the pulse to it.
Absolutely, agreed.
So tell us, do you have a favorite book that you could suggest to our real-time listeners?
You know what, that is the toughest question, because I think there's an enormous amount of amazing books. I'm literally standing in my library right now staring at the books. And I have a pretty big library just because I love books and I read a lot. Since we've been talking a lot about sort of the industry of, the marketing and digital, et cetera, I will tell you, I really love, especially we talked about community management, right? And just building those community and relationships with your customers and your communities. I really like the book called Brains on Fire. It's the same name of an agency. It's an actual agency. There's 4 co-authors there who are all from that agency called Brains on Fire. But basically, the book is all about igniting powerful, sustainable word-of-mouth movements, and that's what it does. I mean, we'll talk about movements, but very few brands actually create a movement, literally multi-year, a ton of passion, a lot of advocates who participate in that movement and carry brand's torch. And that book really tells you how. And once you're done with it, you know exactly what you need to go do with your business.
Wow, I'm going to have to read that. Brains on Fire. It will also be in the show notes. And now, Ekaterina, if you could develop any new business in the world, what would it be?
I have passion for a lot of different things, motherhood, parenting, marketing, building a relationship with customers. But I think ultimately, just because it is my passion, it would be a business that would help companies realize why their lifespan, right, is so short and shorter by the year, and how to become a company that is sustainable and pivots itself continuously. So whether it's going to be a technology that will help you, or a consulting, or anything else, because I ultimately believe that building a connected company that has a long-term, sustainability and the passion of your customers is extremely tough. And I'm really passionate about that mentality, but who knows? Maybe it's going to be, maybe it'll be something else at some point. I'm still thinking of what that perfect thing might be that I want to build all by myself.
You seem like you are loving your dream job right now and loving your life, but you never know. I mean, there's just that I think you hit it on the head with about teaching companies how to constantly pivot, either using technology or changing processes is a huge area of emphasis in that you see companies come and go. Blockbuster is a good one in the last generation.
Yes.
And there's other ones that have been there, Mervyn's and Sears, and the models that they didn't evolve. When Walmart came on, Sears, didn't evolve. And when Costco came along, Sears didn't evolve. And so Sears was at one point, had all the retail space from everybody, and now they're struggling to stay alive. And you mentioned it, it's just technology and then the processes.
Well, and I mean, you mentioned Blockbuster, right? You need to be aware of how to become the next Netflix, not continue to be the current Blockbuster. I mean, like, look, GoPro, Kodak used to be leading the industry. Now companies like GoPro do some really cool, innovative things. So, everybody's, I mean, the average lifespan of a Fortune 500 companies shrank. It used to be 70 plus years. Now it's 10 plus. I mean, it's really crazy if you really look at the data and how the new models and new ways of thinking really replace, the sort of current mentalities and the way that pivot, is such an essential portion. And it's tough to pivot a humongous company, run by executives who are used to thinking in a particular way and are not open to really truly innovating. And innovation means pissing people off. I mean, let's be honest. Right. I mean, look at Bezos, look at Zuckerberg, look at Jobs. Sure. They pissed people and industries and countries off by their decisions, but eventually showed the world that they were right. But when you're so far ahead of time, which that's what businesses need to be, sometimes you need to be willing to be misunderstood. And executives nowadays play safe. They don't want to piss off their shareholders. They're not willing to be misunderstood. So that's the problem.
Yeah, I love that you keep spreading that message, because I think you have something there with really helping businesses from the top down, Procter & Gamble, if you're listening, to really help make those pivots and give them maybe an outsider's perspective, and also bring in all your knowledge of connecting to the community too, which is night and day as well. If you can constantly connect and be in front of the community as it evolves, there's something to that too, as well as obviously there's been a lot of businesses that had success early on Facebook when it was easy to get the organic reach. And then all of a sudden over the years, it's been, changed. And now these businesses are going out of business because of the scale of it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now can you give us one last Real Talk thought, and also how can our real-time listeners get a hold of you?
Oh, that's easy. Google.com.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I have a website, EkaterinaWalter.com. I'm active on Twitter and other social networks, so you can ping me there, and I'm really easy to get a hold of.
And do you have one last Real Talk thought for our listeners?
I want to say, it's one of my favorite quotes is by Henry Ford, and he said, if you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right. So I want to say, just approach, be confident, try new things, and keep being who you are, and approach things from that perspective. Because at the end of the day, nothing is impossible. Everything is possible, and just because somebody says it is, it's all up to you to decide whether you're right, or whether they are right or they're wrong. So I guess that I would like to close with that.
I love it, and I love your passion. And you guys have been hanging out with Ekaterina Walter and Travis Too Tall and Huff. I want to thank you guys for your time, and keep being real. This podcast is proudly sponsored by realtimeoutsource.com.